Oh, took a shot. Yep.
Welcome back to the P2T Canine channel. This is Chris, and it's time for another dog talk. First, a few administrative housekeeping items. We took a week off, did not have a video post last weekend. The whole day job thing, had some things that I had to do and was not able to sit down and get a video done last week. So if you were anticipating one, sorry that one didn't post, but I had to do the whole worky thing and wasn't able to get one done. But I'm back this weekend to post another one. I'm going to take a quick departure from last week's video, the part one about things that every dog owner should know, because something has come up that has just really been in the back of my mind rolling around, and I want to address it. So before we start that, let's talk about our sponsor. The sponsor of today's video is, of course, me, P2T Canine. This YouTube channel is just dog talks that I do to try to share information and spread things that might be useful for free. P2T, Practical to Tactical Canine, primarily dog equipment company. I make all of this stuff right out in the shop behind me. This is all equipment generated by 24 years of experience in many different disciplines of dogs. Things that I want made that I really like, and I hope you will find a liking of them as well. I make every one of these myself by hand. Even my standard Bronze Italy bolt snap leashes, I do an absolutely unique signature reinforcement fold and sewing technique that nobody else is using. All of this stuff is really competitively priced. Go out, shop them all, go check it out. Go look at Recon Canine, go look at Direct Action Canine, go look at Ray Allen, shop them all, and then check out p2tcanine.com, and you will see that I am making stuff that is unique, that other people are not making. And if it is available for a similar product, I guarantee you that I am pricing under what they are selling their stuff for. So do me a favor and go check that out if you would. Thank you very much for that. So today's dog talk, as per the norm, we are going to go from practical to tactical, and the subject today is going to be the hard truth about gunfire. We have opened with two different video clips previous to me getting started. One of them is me at the Mid-South Combat Shooting Institute over on the corner of Mississippi, doing first-person shooter with a dog that I train. And the second one is a video clip of a guy who's a good friend of mine, and I trained him and trained his dog, and that video clip was shot in Afghanistan about 16 years ago. So those are two clips to show you what a dog should look like under gunfire, and how their demeanor and neutrality should work. And we're going to discuss everything. We're going to start with the differences between programs. We're going to discuss old lore and myths and old techniques, and why some of those are not valid, and where the state of this training is today. So let me go back to the beginning. as I have stated before myself in previous videos, I'm not here to try to be overly preachy and tell you that I know everything and that I've done everything and I've done everything right and you don't know what you're doing. That is not the case. I am good at what I do because I have made mistakes. I have made every mistake possible. And I teach guys when I train that when you have a success is followed by a huge dump of endorphins and all kinds of nifty brain chemicals that make you just feel high as a kite. I often tell people it's that kind of high feeling after sex that you just feel like you're on top of the world and you're the king and you really aren't sure how you got there. You just know you're the man. However, in contrast, when you have a failure, my reaction is probably similar to reactions of many of you out there is, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, how did I do this? Please let me fix this. If I can figure out a way to undo the stupid thing that I just did. I tried something, it was a horrible, epic fail, and now the dog in the training has taken a huge step backwards. And if I can just fix that, what do we say? I will never, ever, ever do this again. So in my opinion, this establishes a neural pathway, a mental link is now burned into your brain from now on about what happened going into this situation and how it went horribly wrong and how you never ever want to do that again. So as far as the learning curve goes, failure will teach you a lot more than success. Success is harder to remember and repeat and get back to that euphoric feeling of doing something really, really well. Success breeds success, but definitely failure will show you those guardrails of pitfalls from the past that you want to stay away from. So, with that being said, I've had 24 years of trial and error with plenty of error and also a lot of success. And these are the things that I use to build my training matrix and how to move forward. So I'm going to go back to the very beginning. Little old police canine officer Chris on patrol with his very first dog ever. This would be 1999 into 2000. There is no global war on terror. There really isn't a large signature in the special operations community on the military side for dog programs. And I'm out here trying to do the best I can and learn the way forward with my dog and be the best patrol canine officer that I can be. So here we go with the gunfire issues. I was told by trainers back during this period a great way to neutralize your dog to gunfire is to put your dog in the back of the car, and on qualification day or range day when other officers are going to be out there, go park your car near the line and go out there and do your qualification while the dog is in the car, and this will provide exposure and allow the dog to acclimate to gunfire. No, it does not. No, it will not. Yes, I did do it. Please do not do that ever. It did not cause detrimental problems to my dog, but only because I was lucky. Very lucky, and it had a lot to do with the dog that I had at the time. So to fill in a blank on that, the dog was a PH2 titled KNPV dog from Holland that was very close to 4 years old at the time that I got him to be my patrol dog. So what I know now, looking in the rearview mirror, some big upsides that allowed me to avoid problems on that was the age of the dog. The dog was already going on 4, had tons and tons of training and exposure and countless man hours put into him by a diligent trainer in Holland who knew how to do a lot of the right things with this dog. So I was able to avoid that being a major problem, but it could absolutely still have been a problem. Conversely, now a lot of the trend with law enforcement agencies is buying extremely young dogs. Law enforcement, they have a smaller budget. They don't have the ability to go shop every few years for a new dog. So when they go into these things, the administration of most departments view it more favorably to buy a very young dog, 14 months, 16 months, 18 months. I've seen dogs hitting the market. I had to go buy dogs last year, and there were not very many mature dogs available. And I took a dog for training at 54 weeks old, and I have never done that. I don't like doing that. They are just too young. They're not psychologically developed enough. I don't like moving into one training that young. But with that being said, he's doing well. But I had to make do with what I had available to me at the time when I did that. But as a general rule, I prefer a dog that's a little bit older, a little more developed psychology, has a little bit more of a worldview under their belt before I start moving them into high stress training. So, with that being said, back to the past. Let's see, what else did we hear? If you kennel your dog in a kennel facility or you have them at home, get a gunfire soundtrack and play it while the dog is in a kenneled environment so it becomes simply white noise in the background. Again, this is not true, and I'm going to explain why I believe these things are not true and back it up with some real world information. Take your dog out to the firing line, and while your department is doing qualifications, just go out there and walk your dog around the line while everyone else is shooting, and they are under the control of a range master or firearms instructor who is giving all the commands to the people on the line, and you are not involved. You're just out there with your dog mingling around. Again, not true. Do not do that. Trying to think of what other old school terrible advice that I have heard and or acted upon personally over the years, trying to dig into how to make a dog stable under gunfire. I'm sure one will come to me, and I will address it here in just a little bit and include that. My chickens. They're out running around this morning, and I have a very mixed feelings, love-hate relationship with those guys. Anyway, as I'm one to do, we're going to do a one-take video with no edits because I don't cut anything out. If it's a miscue, chickens, hush! There's a deer over there in the wood line, and I'm sitting here just in case a coyote or a fox comes up so I can handle business. And there's a doe standing over there in the edge of the woods, and it's got all of them just geeked out right now. So apologies for that. How are you going to run a professional operation like this? These are terrible working conditions. Why are they even out this morning? They should be over in the coop. All right, the deer's moving on. Everybody's chilling out. It's fine. Daddy's right here. I got it under control. I'm on security. I got this. So, as far as police departments go and gunfire training, it has been a world of bad information and misinformation for many, many years. Then we move into September 11th, 2001 and beyond. We're talking about the global war on terror era and the real blossoming and developing of a special operations canine presence in the military for the soft forces, and fielding those dogs in Iraq, Afghanistan, and elsewhere under extreme conditions with the most stressful of tactical environments. And how do we go into these environments and use these dogs effectively and operate without injury to the handler or other assaulters and team members under these stressful conditions? There have been missteps. There have been a lot of problems in that 20-year arc, a ton of learning curve, but it is doable. You've got two videos opening this thing that show that it's absolutely possible. I want to take a minute here to address something that doesn't get a whole lot of airtime. And 16 years ago, when I started on this path in the soft canine world, I very quickly developed a theory that I call the hard drive theory. And the hard drive theory is basically this: that you can look at a dog's brain for high stress training, and in particular gunfire, as this tiny little hard drive. And as you all know, every hard drive has a max limit of information that can be put in there before it's just full. And with that being said, there is a max limit of high stress exposure that a dog can take, including gunfire, before they are just maxed out. And now they start having behavioral issues, which is normally expressed in some kind of aggressive behavior where they are releasing angst and expressing their discomfort and displeasure in the only way they know how, which is usually becoming aggressive. To a lesser degree, it can become a shutdown where they just stop working, they cave in on themselves, and then you even have the avoidance where they just want to cut and run, they want out of the situation. But normally, when we're talking about the psychological profile of the dogs that we pick and bring into these programs, normally it usually comes down on the aggression side. They're just going to show you their displeasure with the situation and try to solve that for themselves by aggressing the source of what their anxiety is at the moment. So, with that being said, it doesn't matter if the exposure is in an operational setting or if it is in a training environment, because what is the old axiom? Train like you fight. You want to have everything exposed in the training environment so that when you get into the operational environment, there are no major knowledge gaps for the dog or for the handlers and assaulters, so that when they run up against these situations, they rely on their training and experience, and they're able to just go straight through these situations. So with that being said, a dog really doesn't draw a huge distinction between the training environment as far as the stress inputs go and an operational environment. We do know that dogs can detect when they are in a training environment. You can, and it's a subject for an entirely different video if you want me to dig into it. But when you are in a training environment, dogs usually perform a bit better because they know, due to the circumstances they see developing, that there is the high likelihood, almost guarantee, I would say, that they are going to get a reward at some point for these tasks that we're putting in front of them. So they perform very, very well. In an operational environment, whether you're law enforcement or soft, there can be large gaps of time and effort put into the dog's actual work between events where they are able to get some kind of satisfaction or a reward. But that kind of training being separate and apart from the gunfire, when you are doing gunfire drills in a training environment or an operational environment, you are putting exposure and information onto this tiny little hard drive in their golf ball brain. And if you want the definition and explanation on golf ball brain, go back to the past videos. This police training needs to stop now, and you can hear all about the golf ball brain analogy. But that tiny little hard drive in there is getting loaded with this stress. Now, at what point does the dog hit its max level of stress and start to act out in either aggression, avoidance, or shutting down? Here's the kicker: you don't know. With a hard drive that you purchase, you know up front what is the total max capacity of this device. With our dogs, we do not know what the total max capacity is for their ability to absorb and cope with this stress. So the moral of this story is, you can do training and your dog can be really good in a training environment, but you are loading information in there and stress under this gunfire category, and you're taking up space on that hard drive, not knowing what the total max capacity is going to be, and when you're going to hit that outer limit where the dog just says, I'm no longer comfortable with what you're exposing me to. So with that being said, this is a cautionary tale that you don't need to load up with a ton of gunfire training. Here's another big difference with gunfire training slash neutralization. When we talk about all of the training and neutralizations that we do with our dogs, our working dogs, and even our pets, there are things that are perishable and things that are really pretty much non-perishable. Perishable skills, tracking. Good Lord, if you have a tracking dog and you're not tracking regularly and pushing your time, distance, your duration, and really making them work this task and keep it fresh, tracking is a highly perishable skill that will go away. Obedience. Obedience is a perishable skill. Dogs can get really sharp at it and look super good and polished, but if you start going an extended amount of time, letting things slide, putting them in a down stay, and then they kind of hold it, but then you're doing something else, and then they break that on their own before you release them from it. This is a perishable skill because now the down stay or whatever the behavior is, you can fill in the blank. If they start breaking from it or leaving it on their own without being put back into it or released from it at your command, this is going to be a perishable skill. The one thing that's not really perishable is odor detection. The trained response might start to deteriorate and get a little bit sketchy, but a good detector dog that has been imprinted on odor properly and knows the game, and I've proven that before with my adopted German Shepherd that I used for the Department of State over in Iraq. That dog went almost a full 2 years, and I did zero detection training with him whatsoever. And I had a guy challenge me on it and say, well, I can lay out a training lane, and you have to demonstrate to me that you can read that change of behavior, that you know everything the dog is doing. And I said, not only can I do that and run it blind and smoke it, I will do that with a dog that has had absolutely no exposure to bomb aids in 2 years. And we absolutely burned down that entire training venue and blew the guy's mind. And I've done that before with my narc detector dog at the police department. We didn't have a lot of heroin in our area. It wasn't highly trafficked. And I could go a year between certifications on actual heroin training aids, and my dog never forgot heroin. It was just in there and he knew it. Of all of our working skills, detection is the least perishable. Getting back to the point of the story, gunfire. Gunfire is not perishable. Gunfire is an introduction, it's a neutralization, it is a performance standard. And once a dog is comfortable with it, it is not something that you need to revisit over and over and over again. You're just taking up space on that hard drive with these repetitive exposures. If you get into a particular situation operationally and you have a little bit of a hiccup, then that may be situationally dependent and you need to go back and do a little remediation training to try to fix that. But overall, generally speaking, once your dog has become neutralized to gunfire and is stable under these conditions, you do not have to keep revisiting that. You are just wasting space putting that stress into their hard drive, not knowing what that upper limit is when they're going to tap out. So there's kind of the covering the waterfront on the old school part, the why, my training theories behind it, and how that plugs into my operational matrix. Now let's start moving forward into present day. Obviously, like I said, even over 20 years ago and beyond, when there was no global war on terror, guys were doing gunfire and not really sure about it in many of these law enforcement agencies, and trying to do it and integrating it, but not really having a clear picture on the how or the why. So now we move into the era of the global war on terror, and now there's a lot of videos from combat and theater available. There is a lot of information and interviews coming back from guys that deployed with these dogs, and they came back and they're talking about how these dogs did in massive gunfights and in CQB, inside building interiors, while they were part of the operation of the assault. And there's a lot of gunfire going on in there. And so with all of this new information, the police department stateside started to feel a little inferior and started to feel some pressure to begin mission creep of, oh, well, soft elements with canine programs are doing this. Maybe we need to start moving that direction and our training and our usage. So here comes the controversial part. No, you don't really need to. There is a lot of good new information developed during that era of the GWAT, and it is still in use and it's still being refined and improved upon. But is this something that your police department needs to chase? Not necessarily. So in a couple of previous videos, 2 of them, I addressed that I was going to the ATK9 conference at Muscatatuck in September, and then we did one immediately with my buddy Clay after we came back from that conference. And I saw a gentleman there doing some training for law enforcement agencies, and we'll leave his name out of it for now, unless it becomes important or relevant. And I saw him providing this training, and I'm just standing there with my buddy Clay, who gave his bona fides on the last video, if you want to go look at that, and also a veteran of the GWAT in Afghanistan. And we're looking at this, talking to each other, saying why. And this trainer is providing training to these law enforcement agencies, and the dogs are showing some behaviors. And we hear him saying, wow, I'm really confused. I don't understand what I'm seeing here. It was plain as day. So let's start with the drill he was showing. He had the law enforcement officers get out with their duty rig, sidearm, safely unloaded, and their long gun. Most of these guys, M4s, safely unloaded as well, and their dog is out on the obedience field. And the training in a nutshell was walking in the heel with your dog, drawing your sidearm and making a full presentation while you're walking in the heel, holstering your sidearm, coming up, making a full presentation with the long gun. So basically kind of mixing obedience with transition drills with sidearm and long gun, and then mixing in what I guess he viewed as tactical obedience. One guy in particular, he's walking in the heel with this dog, and he pulls out the sidearm and makes a full presentation, and the dog was walking in a loose heel and immediately begins to jump and isn't biting him, but is getting mouthy with this guy's shoulder and tricep on his left side. And the trainer says, oh, that's odd, go ahead and holster. So he holsters and the dog quits. He says, full presentation with your long gun. The long gun comes up and the dog has no response. Wow, that's weird. Go ahead and transition back to pistol. Long gun down, sidearm up. The dog becomes aggressive again and is jumping towards his tricep and is looking out here at the sidearm. And the trainer says, I'm not sure what I'm looking at here. And Clay and I look at each other from the sidelines and we're shaking our heads. It is absolutely clear what's going on there, and the dog is telling you what's going on there. The officer has clearly screwed up introducing the dog to sidearm pistol fire, and the dog recognizes that sidearm as a source of stress for him and immediately became agitated when the sidearm came out. Thankfully, it's my opinion that the officer realized he was going down the wrong path with sidearm gunfire training and did not try to cross the Rubicon and go with long gun training, and has not been shooting that M4 around a dog, because the minute the sidearm went away and the long gun came out, the dog did not recognize this as a source of stress and he did not respond. Why this guy? Well, the why is obvious. The guy doesn't know enough about gunfire to either be teaching it or giving opinions on it, and that's why he didn't recognize the problem, because he's out there teaching something that he's not qualified enough to be teaching. So Clay and I are talking, and we said this is absolutely obvious what's going on here. The dog hates the pistol and doesn't know that the M4 also goes bang bang, and therefore he's not reacting. So this trainer would have the officers, all of them, in the heel, put the dog in a down, The officer would move ahead probably another 25, 30 feet. He would tell them to take a knee, draw their sidearm, make a full presentation, and then call the dog up next to them and take a down stay in the heel position next to the officer. And then they would do these transition drills between rifle and pistol. So here comes the criticism and the online hate comments, which is fine by me. Water off a duck's ass. I'm fine with it. Take it or leave it. This is just free information. You aren't paying for it. If you want me to come to your department and teach it, we will quote a time and a price and do it. If you think I'm just an a-hole on the internet, that's fine too. Do with it as you will. So with that being said, most law enforcement agencies do not need Special Operations Forces quality gunfire neutralization and stability. Why is that? So I'm going to refer back to my first video that I put out, where I was talking about why you don't need a bite dog as a pet owner or in your everyday life. And as part of that video, if you want to go back and watch it and get a deeper explanation, I talked about the force continuum as it pertains to law enforcement, the profession, and where a dog falls into the force continuum in that discussion. In that discussion, we covered how a dog falls normally in most department SOPs, where you have the electronic restraints of the taser, the chemical restraints of OC or other types of sprays, CNCS, if anybody's still using that, and then impact weapons, collapsible ASP batons or PR-24s, or other impact weapons that are authorized by your agency, that normally a dog fell in the gap between chemical and electronic restraints and an impact weapon, and that how above impact weapons we had our less lethal options, which a dog is considered a less lethal option, but our other ballistic less lethal options of rubber buckshot, bean bags, other projectiles that are meant to try to slow or incapacitate a suspect with a lower likelihood of permanent injury or death, being the actual definition of less lethal. And then how your discharge of actual ammunition, of lethal ammunition, was top of the food chain in your force continuum. That lethal force was the end of the road. So with that being said, anytime we use dogs, OCONUS, outside the continental United States in soft operations, that we know that the dog is a less lethal option that is allowing us to try to cause chaos in a tactical situation, chaos for the enemy, and buy us time in order to back up the dog's efforts with lethal uses of force, being gunfire. So with that being said, law enforcement agencies do not have the budget that the soft community enjoys. Law enforcement agencies have, just like I talked about earlier, a real eye on the longevity of their dog to support their canine program. They don't want to get a dog and then turn around and buy a new one in 6 months or a year or even 2 years. Most agencies are looking to maximize that upfront financial investment into a dog program and try to get 6, 8, 10 years out of these dogs, which is the trend pushing departments to buy younger and younger dogs, trying to increase that life cycle where they can use these dogs over the course of a number of years. So we've talked about the age, the acquisition budget. Now let's talk about the training. If you are talking about law enforcement training, when I was still on the road, I don't know what my former agency allows now. I wouldn't be surprised if it has changed none at all. But as far as an excused training day where it is your point and place of duty to go train, and you're going to get paid for your normal duty hours for training with your canines at your department and surrounding departments, if you have a training group, we had one a month. 1 day a month was set aside for us to be off the schedule, answering no calls, going out and doing our own sustainment, maintenance / and/or advanced training. I've trained all over the United States at this point, trained with um, agencies from East Coast to West Coast, municipal, state, federal, and training opportunities vary within those. Normally, the lower down you are, if you are a municipal or county agency, the budget is usually tighter. Anyway, getting deep into the weeds here. The farther up you go with federal agencies, hey, they're on the taxpayer's dime, so you and I fund a lot more training time. I'm not hating on it. It's just, the higher up the food chain you go, the more money is available, especially at the federal level. The more you can be excused from work in order to go out and do your training, which training is a good thing if it's being done properly. So, with that being said, I still train here locally. We help out with some departments that are near us. These guys are really lucky. They get every other Wednesday. So these guys get at least 2 training days a month, sometimes 3. If you go to larger agencies, Cincinnati, Don Meese, great guy who helps put on the ATK9 conference. He does all the training for the Cincinnati PD, and they have a large training group that reaches out to the outlying areas around Cincinnati. They have a training day per week. So your larger agencies that are more well-funded and have more assets as far as the number of officers available usually indicate you're going to get more training opportunities. So with that being said, what does the contrast look like? When you're talking about soft canine elements, you're talking about people who train 5 days a week. If you are not deployed, you have Monday through Friday of every single week where your job, your point and place of duty is to go to the kennel, get those dogs out, put them on trucks, on trailers, use ranges on military bases, use part of your funds from your yearly sustainment funds to travel to other states, to go to exciting and unique venues. So when you're talking about, well, I want my agency to mirror what they're doing with gunfire for some of these soft programs, we need to remember that the amount of money available for the acquisition of the dogs, the test pool that we can go look at and choose from, the life cycle that these dogs are on, the time that it is acceptable between us buying a dog to us adopting one out or disposing of them from the program. It is much more acceptable to be shorter. Then we look at, we are training 5 days a week unless you're deployed. Oftentimes you are deploying with a subject matter expert level trainer who is there in country with you, available to sometimes go out on target, to participate in live targets, to set up training, OCONUS, in these environments, these theaters of operation. So these programs, the amount of support 365 all year long to these programs is a monumental effort that is not available to most stateside law enforcement agencies. So this is where we need to start to understand that there's a big difference between what you should expect or even want to do with your dog in gunfire and tactical applications stateside, CONUS, continental U.S., versus OCONUS, outside the continental U.S. There are a ton of backside factors in play with how these two are going to have disparate performance levels. So with that being said, I want to go back to the controversial part, which is law enforcement agencies. You don't need to be trying to chase this performance standard. I realize that a lot of what's going on in the soft canine community is wildly impressive and super sexy, and I don't disagree. Been privileged to be a part of that for over a decade now. Yeah, so 16, I got involved with it 16 years ago. So I've got a lot of behind the scenes, been to places and done things that very few people have the opportunity to go and do, and I'm thankful for that every day. With that being said, we're going back to the training at the ATK9 conference. trying to pull this dog up right beside you in an obedient position and make a full presentation and potentially fire that weapon with a dog that close to you is not necessary for a law enforcement agency. So let's talk about how you really should go about getting your dog gunfire neutralized, what good techniques are, and then what the upper limit of the expectation and performance should be for a law enforcement agency specifically. So with that being said, how do I introduce my dog to gunfire? That is a great question. There is a specific route that I take to getting a dog to gunfire, and we're going to cover that from start to finish. When you go to a vendor, how should you assess your dog's natural predisposition at this point when you're buying a dog to gunfire? Should you go out and immediately have a exposed shooter that the dog can see, pull out a gun and start popping caps, either blanks or please don't do live fire, shooting blank or live ammunition? Should you start with that at the vendor? No, you should not. Don't go and be the a-hole who causes a problem or ruins a dog at a vendor doing your testing and evaluation. It's just poor etiquette. How do you start? Use blank fire. The reason for that we can talk about more is if you're using pistol calibers, especially 9mm and other supersonic pistol calibers, when you shoot, not only do you have the initial report at the muzzle, but then you also have the supersonic crack of the projectile downrange, and the dog can pick up on both of these individually. And so maybe even a dog that is calm and obedient at the report at the muzzle can hear the supersonic crack downrange, and they want to run down and investigate that supersonic crack. So if you're doing initial T&E, please use blank ammo. That is fine. We just need the dog's response to this loud noise that is introduced to him. Number two, the gunfire needs to be controlled by the person handling the dog. If you're the officer who's going to handle this dog and you are assessing and selecting your dog under the guidance of a trainer, or you are the trainer picking this dog for someone, for the agency, for the organization, you need to be the one calling the gunfire. So you're going to put your shooter behind concealment, a tree line, a hedgerow, behind some cars, but at a distance where the shooter is not readily visible to the dog. They can't just pick them out, and in a setting where the echo will kind of move around the dog, where they can't just exactly immediately pinpoint the location of where's that noise coming from. The reason we're doing this is we are just trying to assess the dog's demeanor under this first exposure. We're not trying to give them a target for this anxiety to be focused on. We're not trying to show them what the sound of this gunfire looks like, a person standing, making a full presentation with a weapon. We just want to see how they act when they hear it. So I'm going to go on a casual walk, no toys yet, no food yet. I just want to see what this dog does under natural conditions. So ideally, I would like to be in an area where there are multiple things to look at. A building nearby, maybe a few vehicles nearby, that hedgerow or wood line, things where there's a lot for the dog to look at. They can't just focus on one thing. If you're in the middle of a cornfield or a hayfield and your buddy parks a car 100 yards away and we start popping caps and there's only one thing to look at out there, the dog is going to start focusing their attention naturally to the one place where the sound could be coming from. So that's why I'm saying try to have this mixed terrain where there's a lot for the dog to look at, a ton of eye candy, and not just one or two choices for him to focus in on about this is where the sound is coming from. So we're going to walk along, me and the dog. We're casual. We're having a good time. I don't necessarily want him looking at me. I'm going to throw one finger in the air indicating I want one gunshot. My helper is going to fire one round because even though they're behind concealment, they can still see me as I'm walking, but not readily visible to the dog. I call for one, Boom, the shot goes off. I'm looking for what the dog does. If the dog just recognizes it and comes up and looks around, I'm looking for them to, at the most, mark and realize that something happened, but then recover very quickly mentally and say, well, that was anomalous, that was weird, it's not a big deal, I'm not freaked out about it, and then go back to whatever they were doing. I'm not going to stop my stride. I'm going to walk with the dog, call for one shot, bang. If the dog stops, I'm going to stop momentarily with them and assess what the dog is doing. If they recover, which is my highest point for grading on this scale, is if the dog recognizes it and then just goes back to what they're doing and continues on, or at the distance that we're at, which it should not be close, if the dog doesn't even respond to it at all, that is your top score. If they look up and notice it and then quickly go back to sniffing the ground or walking around and acting nonchalant about it, that is your next to perfect score, is a dog that just recognizes, recovers immediately, and goes back into the same mindset that they had previous to the shot. If we pop that cap and the dog comes up and starts to cower or starts to hackle or freezes and doesn't really want to move, I'm going to try to train through it and see what we can get out of this dog. So if they have any of these behaviors, the hackling, the freezing, the trying to look and really focus in on where that came from, I'm going to tug on the leash a little bit. Hey, come on, let's keep moving. I don't want them to get sucked into that loop and continue down that rabbit hole. I'm going to provide that recovery of, hey, get back in motion. And with dogs, when I do a lot of training, whether it's obedience and gunfire, we talk about the mind in motion and the body in motion. So stopping the mind to stop the body, putting the mind in motion to start the body. So if his mind has stopped and he's focused on this gunfire, I'm going to try to get the body back in motion, to get the mind back in motion, to take it off of trying to focus in on where that stimulus just came from. So as we walk along, the dog settles back in. I may call, depending on the first read, I may call for a onesie, or I may call for a controlled pair. Go ahead and give me 2 shots. If the initial reaction ranked very, very high, the no reaction at all, or the quick recovery solely on the part of the dog, I'm going to call for 2. Let me see what he looks like under 2 shots, and continue from there. If the dog is stable, and then I can make a trip through my venue and then come back and cut that distance in half. So if I started at maybe 100 yards of separation and everything went well, I'm going to come back and I'm going to cut that down to about 50. The shooter is still under concealment, not visible to the dog, and I'm going to go through this again, but we're going to close that distance a little bit and reassess all of these behaviors. If that goes well, I may come back within 25 yards and call for a onesie. And if I can be within 25 yards of a guy that the dog cannot see, and they can pop that cap and the dog doesn't react, or reacts, notices, marks it, and then continues mission without anything on my part, then this dog, I'm going to stop right there. He's doing really, really well on my initial evaluation of would I bring this dog into the program, and that's all I need to see. The don'ts. Don't go and pair a decoy, a guy in bite equipment, with a blank pistol the first time that you test and evaluate a dog for going into your program. I saw a program one time testing dogs. The handler goes out and posts up with a dog. You've got a guy in a sleeve with a revolver that's shooting blanks. They post up with the dog. The agitator steps out. He begins waving his arm with a sleeve on, holds the pistol out, and he fires a shot into the ground with a blank, and the handler is posting the dog up, and the dog is losing his mind. If you're doing a gunfire evaluation, we are trying to assess a dog's natural either neutrality or aggressiveness or shyness to the stimulation. If you go out there and you post up and you're in equipment and you agitate with equipment and then you fire a shot before doing anything with the dog is fired up and aggressing towards this decoy. And I'm asking the guy with me, because I'm trying to have a teachable moment, I said, in this scenario, what is the dog aggressing to? We don't know, because they haven't isolated stressors. You got a guy who's standing there with visible equipment on. Maybe the dog is just fired up because he sees a guy in a sleeve, and the guy in the sleeve is doing old school toy judo karate chop action, waving this sleeve up and down. Maybe that's what got the dog to fire up and be aggressive. Then he immediately follows that up with a blank shot, which now, is the dog gun aggressive? We don't know. Is the dog barking and going off because the decoy fired a shot, or is it strictly aggression to the sleeve? Then they allow the dog to go, and the dog bites the sleeve, and then he fires 2 more shots into the ground. Okay, so now what have we learned from that? In my view, absolutely nothing. Do we know if this dog is gun aggressive? We have no idea. He's biting the decoy who's wearing a piece of protective equipment. Is he biting because he's agitated by the sound of the gunfire, and now he's taking out his angst and aggression on the decoy because the decoy is available and it was the sound that made him aggressive? Is he simply biting the decoy because he has a sleeve on, and now that he's on and the guy popped the 2 shots, is what's keeping the dog there the fact that he's biting the decoy and he feels some kind of security in a familiar task with biting a bite sleeve, and even though the guy popped the caps, he doesn't break contact? Does that tell us anything? Not really. It doesn't give us a very good read on if this dog is gun aggressive or gun shy. We don't know if he's gun shy because maybe the equipment is getting him through the stress and the urge to leave, because he's on the bite and the bite is going to carry him through it. And then people may argue with me and say, well, if he's on the bite and the bite is what I want, and the guy is shooting live rounds and the dog doesn't break and run, then that means he's a good candidate for my program because it proves he's not gun shy. Well, it doesn't prove that he's not gun shy, and we also need to go back to the controversial piece of this video of law enforcement agencies using their dog in a lethal force setting, using a less lethal use of force, i.e. being the dog, who usually comes in below a PR-24. So this is where we're going to start really getting into the nub of the matter for my former brethren in the law enforcement community, to which I still have a great love and appreciate the job, and was all I wanted to be in high school, and was the dream job when I got it. But now we're in the law enforcement community starting to chase things about the global war on terror that maybe we shouldn't, and that's a screed for another day when we're talking about tactical gear and multicam and a lot of other things that I think makes for an overly aggressive appearing law enforcement agency, which should be a member, servant, and beloved part of the community, not someone who looks like an occupying force in the county of 14,000 that I live in right now. So staying off of that tangent, but are you chasing something that is useful, and are you really viewing that in where does this dog fit into your department? Do I have enough training, budget, and all of the other reasons that make it possible in the soft community to use a dog in this way? Is this how it should fit into my department? And I'm telling you, no, it's not. If you are in a situation where a guy is armed or likely armed, and you are probably going to be using your firearm, your dog isn't really a part of this. What piece does your properly patrol trained dog figure into in this setting? Tracking and area searches, or building searches if your dog is so trained. Scenario, we have a guy who just robbed a bank or committed a heinous crime where a firearm was involved. I'm the canine officer. I get that call. We have to go. There's been a pursuit. the guy has crashed and bailed out, and now he's run into the woods or a field or whatever, and we don't have any other way to find this guy and bring him to justice other than using this dog right now. Should you go out and do a track or an area search for this guy? Absolutely. This is where your dog factors in. I am now using my patrol canine in order to try to find this guy where there is no other means available, to go ahead and bring this guy in and possibly, most likely, prevent him from committing another violent act towards somebody in the immediate future or the not too distant future. Yes, go out and do your track. Go out and conduct your area search. Once you have found this guy, if we already have the information that he is armed or likely to be armed, your dog's role needs to come to a stop at this point. If you track up to this guy, which I have done many times, and they are face down in the leaves, they're under a bush, they're non-responsive, they're face down, this guy has gone to ground due to a quality pursuit on the part of you and hopefully the security guys with you who are on your department. Maybe you have good containment if you're in a more urban setting, and other officers were able to go out and set up that cordon and create a good environment of pressure where this guy felt like he had to go to ground, that running and getting through the perimeter was not an option. I have done this many times. Come up on a guy with a dog, and this guy is unresponsive. He's gone to ground. His hands are in brush or leaves or cover, or they're under his body, and this guy is unresponsive. If he had a weapon at the time of the crime or fired shots or is suspected to have a weapon, this is not the time for the dog to be the first use of force in trying to bring this guy into custody. Again, we are talking about an opportunity where this guy may use deadly force against you, and if we look at where that dog falls into the force continuum, somewhere between tasers, pepper spray, and impact weapons, are you going to go up there with this guy who's laying on the ground who might have a gun, and your first action is going to be to take your PR-24 or your ASP and go up there and engage this guy with proper training techniques with an impact weapon who's laying on the ground who might have a gun? I don't know any agency or any officer who would look at that as the first course of action. So why are you going to engage in a potentially lethal force situation with a less lethal option like an impact weapon? Going back to, why would you throw your dog into the mix if this guy has got a gun? I'm telling you why you shouldn't is because if this guy does have a gun, you send your dog in there to bite him. If he has the means to use lethal force and your dog bites him, he's probably going to shoot your dog first thing, and you're going to be out a dog. And go back to my previous videos where I talk about the incidents from police camera footage of guys sending their dog to bite someone who is brandishing a knife or firearm. If they are brandishing or known to have a knife or a firearm, a dog bite, a dog canine use of force should already be off the table. You can take them with you if you see an opportunity or a need to use them later, but this is not course of action number one. And it is for that reason that you're probably going to send your dog to die, and it's going to die right in front of you. And in the majority of these videos, the expectation that the officer has from previous training scars of this dog is going to go and bite and everything is going to go according to plan, because that's the way it goes in training scenarios, his world is about to be shattered, and he is going to be very much a psychological liability when he watches his dog get killed right in front of him, and this guy either caves in emotionally or wildly overreacts and perhaps draws and has a lethal use of force that may not fit the situation. So this is not your first course of action. You with the dog, you have gone and you've done your building search, area search, or track. You have located the guy. You need, hopefully you've got one or more security element with you. You pull back, and now the dog becomes a fallback to a different use as this thing develops. You should not be the one up there drawing your weapon. Even if your dog has laser obedience, this is getting ready to be a lot to handle. And again, I take a back seat to no one in my own opinions or knowledge. I have used dogs in the United States. I have used dogs in Iraq, in OIF, and I have used dogs multiple times in Afghanistan on target in OEF. So I take a back seat to no one in developing my own opinions through years of actual firsthand use. If you are a police officer in this scenario and this guy is probably armed or could be armed with a firearm or knife, once we have located him, I need to back up and take more of a cover role than being the primary effort. So for me to stay that close to the guy and order my dog into a down, and going back to the training scenario at ATK9 and draw my firearm and make a full lethal force presentation, I should not be the first person shooter at this moment. I should not be the one who's being relied upon to shoot accurately. And again, I reiterate, I have been in Afghanistan where I have had to control a good dog and also shoot with an M4 at the exact same time. And even with a good dog, it is a split attention task at its best. This whole video started with me at Mid-South shooting with a dog, and the whole time I am moving along with a sidearm, shooting live ammunition, I am thinking about where is this dog relative to me, what is its level of drive, how does it feel, where is it at in relation to me with cover and concealment as I move through that little course, that small Hogan's Alley. So there is a lot of divided attention task going on when you're trying to maintain control and security of that dog. The people around you have proper muzzle awareness and know when to shoot, how many rounds to shoot, assessing and making positive identification of the threat of what that guy's holding in his hand. You should no longer be the primary effort. And this is where I'm saying the effort that law enforcement agencies are putting into and being coached by some of these trainers, bring that dog right up next to you. And certainly if you're wielding an M4, if you are a canine officer in a law enforcement agency, and I came from a town that had a lot of tourism, public perception was everything. While I was there, we had the classic 12 gauge pump shotgun as our long gun use of force. We had SWAT guys and perimeter guys, which I was also qualified as a perimeter guy to carry a 5.56 long gun as perimeter backup or use of force during active shooter scenarios. If you are using a long gun or you have pulled one out because you as a law enforcement officer think that a long gun is going to be in play, your dog shouldn't be. If you pull up and you have already gone into your trunk or into your ready rack and you have slung up with an M4, if it's that kind of a party, your dog probably doesn't factor into this. And as a law enforcement agency, trying to teach your dog to factor into that is probably a mistake in most situations. I would say 99% of these, this is going to be a mistake. If you have any of the active shooter scenarios that we have seen in recent years, from the most recent all the way back to Columbine, the dog is not going to come into play. If you are trying to use at least a 3-man formation and assault a building with the exclusive purpose of closing distance with and stopping this person who's doing the shooting and preventing them from creating more casualties, the dog doesn't factor in. You're going door to door, room to room, looking for a person who is shooting right now. If that dog enters the room before you do, that dog's probably going to get shot. If you are one of the 3 shooters in formation moving room to room to try to solve this problem, you're going to have too much of a divided attention task in most departments. You're not going to have the subject matter expert support or the training opportunities to be proficient where you are free flowing room to room with 3 people in this chaotic situation where your dog is going to be a value added asset in this scenario, you should leave him in the car, get your long gun, get your ballistic helmet, form up your 3-man team or greater with your fellow officers, and go and put this person down. The dog should not be a factor. If you're on the perimeter and the dog might come into play, if this guy squirts, breaks containment, and the tracking or the area search comes back into play, again, I take a back seat to no one. I have covered miles upon miles in full ceramic rifle armor in kit with an M4 with a suppressor on the end, trying to solve tactical situations. And if you're in a law enforcement agency, if you're getting ready to potentially run a track, your security element is going to be your long gun use of force. You do not need to be out there trying to strap on an M4 or other kind of long gun, move with it through the trees, through the woods, not get tangled up, handle whatever your preference is, a 10, 15, or 30-foot tracking line, and make your way to this person. It is simply not feasible. That is why you have your security element with you, who's going to back you up with lethal force from a long gun. That is just bottom line. When we go in as on soft targets with these dogs overseas, we are going in knowing that there is going to be gunfire both on the part of the bad guy and on the part of the assault force, and that the dog is likely being used as a distractor or a way to buy reactionary gap time for us to come in and lethally eliminate the people who are there. If that means shooting through the dog in order to eliminate that threat, don't put your fellow officers in the position where if your dog does successfully engage, that they're trying not to shoot this guy or shoot this guy without hitting your dog is what I meant to say, how to frame that. In these soft settings, you're talking about guys who 5 days a week are out doing CQB, shooting inside of a building, shooting outside of a building, doing a ton of shoot and move training with both long guns and sidearms, doing classes for weeks at a time, months at a time, to get the level of proficiency where they can go in and use lethal force around a dog and hit a bad guy confidently without hitting the dog. And then we are also, as a group in this same setting, all on board with the fact that if this guy has a gun and he's trying to maneuver on us or use that use that gun to kill the dog or kill one of us, that we are going to shoot through that dog to kill this guy. Everybody present is on board with shoot this guy in the face and kill him if you can, shoot through the dog and kill him if you must. That is already baked into the cake, and everyone is on board with that as a possible outcome. So in a law enforcement setting, hey, it is what it is. Some of these agencies, they only shoot live fire ammo once every 12 months when they do their annual state mandated qualification with live fire, and not everybody there is a super competent shooter or even has the training opportunities provided to them to become one. Not everybody is on board with shooting through this dog in order to eliminate the bad guy. So there's a whole host of reasons why, if you are making your bite dog part of this effort, that you are going to be successful with it. So if you do want to do it, if you want to pursue this, how should you do it? So I'm not just here to preach about why not to do it. If you're going to pursue this, there is real information out there, and there are techniques that I have used over the years that will give you the best possible chance of success. Dogs are single-minded critters. They can only focus on, do, or participate in one thing at a time. It's also a bit of a misconception that people can multitask. People can't truly multitask. You get better at it. You learn the ability to do task management for multiple things at one time. And I'm not proud of it, but can I drive and eat a Chick-fil-A sandwich and drive with my knee and talk on the radio and give and comprehend information all at the same time? Yes. Have I done it? Yes. Can you do it? Probably also. Yes. When you're talking about special operations forces, um, radio traffic for police is chaotic enough when it's just a system where only one person can send and receive traffic at a time on your radio, and then you're walking on each other where more than one person is trying to talk at the same time on the frequency. If you're talking about a net, when you're talking about radio comms for soft forces overseas, everybody, it's a party line. You can hear the aircraft, you can hear the combat controller, you can hear everybody on the assault force all talking in your ear at the same time. So can we multitask and do task management? Yes, we can. Can a dog do it? No, they cannot. This is where we start to use that to our advantage. So when you are training gunfire, don't just go out on the line where people are doing firearms training and expose your dog to that. If you're going to do live fire training, have obedience tasks that your dog already knows. Have something like place training available in your bag of tricks, in your toolbox, where you can take place tables out to the range. If you are a bomber and you do bomb detection, or even if you do drug detection, go find a way to put some detection hides on the range in the area behind the firing line where you can conduct detection. Think about toy play. So before I go to live fire, I want this whole tool bag available to me of ways that I can use the dog's singularly focused mind to keep it on me and on a task and off of the gunfire as I'm moving in small steps closer and closer to the gunfire. So I'm going to go out there. I'm going to have my place boards. I'm already going to have this dog, if they're a good dog on food, I'm going to have them already on click treat rewards. And it's going to be, hey, go place on a 30-foot line, because I do not want them to make their way to the live fire line without me being present. So on my 30-footer and with my place tables, hey, doggy, place. And again, just like the way I do my blank fire for selection, the people on the firing line are not doing their own thing. They may have a range instructor or firearms instructor or range master out there as a safety to open and run the range as requirements may dictate, but I'm the one who's calling for the gunfire. If I'm using pistol fire and if I am using long guns, 5.56, I am always using a suppressor on long guns. Because your sidearm, even if you're a soft assaulter, is not normally going to have a suppressor on it. It'll be an unsuppressed sidearm, which is of a lower impact. But if I am a handler, a trainer, or training soft canines, I am always shooting 5.56 with a suppressor on. Many law enforcement agencies don't have suppressors for their rifles in the inventory. If you don't, leave it out of the training. Just avoid it. So back to what I'm talking about. Have your chickens, hush, you're ruining the quality of my talk. Rooster, Cooper the Copper Moran, just going to walk on set here. Go do what roosters do. So with that being said, I want my training already set up. I want this dog on click treat. I want to know what kind of rewards they prefer, toy rewards. I'm going to have obedience tasks, place training, sit down here, stay, go away, come back. All of these things need to be in my toolbox, and maybe even some detection on the range available so that I can make the dog do something rather than just being out there exposing them to the gunfire. Always view this as, in any stressful training, don't just go expose the dog to it. Your job is to be their spirit guide and tell them what you want their opinion of this to be, and keep them from going into this rabbit hole and caving in mentally around the stress of whatever is taking place. So with that being said, we don't park the car next to the gunfire and allow the dog to get into this heightened state of drive or this emotional rabbit hole where they cave in on themselves. I'm out there, I'm with the dog, I'm watching what they're doing, and I'm controlling the gunfire. So everybody on the live fire line is looking at me. We've already pre-communicated the number of fingers I hold up is for how many shots that I want, and I'm going to tell them how many shooters I want active at any given time. I'm always going to start with one shooter only, and then I'm going to call the shots. So I'm out there, I've got my click treat pouch, I've got my toys, everything that's available. Doggy, place. And as he's on his way to place, I'm going to call for one round, kapow. The dog places. I'm going to immediately hit the clicker. I'm going to call, and the whole time I'm watching, as long as the dog is recognizing or ignoring the gunfire but focusing on me, we're going to keep rolling. Click, treat. Good. I'm marking, I'm rewarding, they're getting treats. While all this is going on, I'm giving 2 fingers. Give me 2 shots. Bang, bang, dog, here, over. Place to another place table. Click, treat. If that went well, give me 3 shots. Shooter on the line who's looking over their shoulder turns, pow, 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 gives me 3, and then he looks back, weapon pointed down range in a safe direction, looks to me for my next call. Great, doggy, here, plots. Vulligan, down, stay, walk with me in the heel. We're walking in the heel. I'm moving closer to the line. Give me 4 shots. Click, treat, boom. Paying for walking in an obedient heel. I'm going to come up and put myself between the shooter and the dog. I'm going to go up, down, stay on the line. Shooter, give me 1. Pow, click, stay, pay, and we're going to turn and heel away from the line. This is all about absorbing so much of the dog's mental operating system that this gunfire is just in the background. If they recognize it, I'm going to immediately redirect and get them to another task and give them something to look at that is not the gunfire. And we are slowly going to get closer and closer in proximity to where that is taking place, that gunfire. I'm going to bring them up. My first round, I'm not even trying to get this dog or do any accurate marksmanship. I want this dog to just be with me when I call it first person shooter. So after I have worked all of this over a series of minutes with different tasks, it's going successfully, I'm going to come up to the line, down, stay. My focus is on the dog. I know that I have a good range with a quality backstop. I've got a designated target that I am shooting at, but I'm not shooting for accuracy, but I'm not shooting over the berm or into the dirt. I'm going to go up, down, stay, click, treat. Shooter, pass me a hot weapon. They're going to pass me a hot weapon. I'm going to make 1 shot, and I'm going to pass it back. I'm going to click, treat, and I'm going to heel away. So I kind of left out a part before that. Is the first time that you go out and introduce this dog to shooters that they can make line of sight eye contact with and live ammo, is that the first time that they should see a weapon, long gun, or a sidearm? No, it is not. And this is a critical piece. Don't let the first time you go out and pull from the holster and present a weapon, sidearm, or long gun be the day that you're on the range and you start shooting live ammo. And you don't even have to have one in your hands. Start while you're still on the obedience field, putting all of your obedience behaviors into your dog. Something that I've done for years, go ahead and take a knee next to your dog. Put your dog in a down stay and get down on both knees and straddle your dog. And I do empty hand draws and presentations over their head. I lie on the ground next to them and do full presentations. I will take my 6-foot leash when they are off leash, and I will pull it out in a straight line so I have material between my left and right hand, and I'll stretch it out so they see something between my hands. And I will do a simulated presentation of a long gun. Start making your presentations with a training gun, blue or red, with a safely unloaded firearm in a secure environment. Start making your presentations during your obedience. Let them see that this object is just an inanimate object. With a safely unloaded firearm, you can place it on the ground. Let them smell it. Let them see what it is. Please believe me, I kid you not, when I have seen so-called trainers take a dog to a live fire range for the first time, start shooting live ammo, and then when the dog barks at the pistol and doesn't aggress the handler, thankfully, but aggresses the actual firearm because they think this is the source of their anxiety, I have seen them drop the hammer safe and take a pistol and slap a dog in the face with it to get them to not aggress it, as if that was going to solve anything. So not only do I see and hear that thing and recognize that I do not like the sound and activity coming from that, when I aggress at it, then that guy is going to follow that up by pistol whipping me in the face with it. I don't know in what alternate universe that is going to do anything except make a bad situation much worse, which is what it did when I witnessed it firsthand. That is just absurd that anyone would think that that's the thing to do. So what I want to do initially, get them comfortable with all of the shooting positions and postures that I might take in their presence, doing it empty hand, doing it simulated, doing it with my leash, making a simulation in my hand, and then presenting with either training guns or safely unloaded weapons in a venue where I can do that, so that they get familiar with, oh, these are just inanimate objects, and just their presence alone does not indicate that something bad is going to happen. Why is this particularly important to you law enforcement community handlers? Because having been a law enforcement officer, the number of times that the situation does warrant us pulling and making a full presentation with a sidearm or a long gun, but not using them, far outweighs the number of times that we actually pull it out and end up pulling the trigger on live ammunition. This is an important piece to remember as it pertains to the dog. You need to get them comfortable with making a full presentation, even if you have a dog that's not fully mentally stable or neutral around gunfire. If you can make sure that they are stable around a full presentation, that is going to come up more often for you in the execution of your official duties than actually pulling that out in front of a dog and following it up by pulling the trigger. So this point cannot be overstated. Make them comfortable with pulling your weapon out and doing full presentations or tactical movements that don't cause them to act out in any way, because you're going to run into that more often than you shoot. For soft elements, once you go out and you got a gun and you go on target, 9 out of 10, 9.5 out of 10, 9.9 out of 10, there are going to be live ammunition rounds dispersed, and there's going to be lethal engagement. So it takes on a different setting, but especially for the law enforcement community. But it's also important in soft as well. You've seen the videos, the movements. Everyone's in the stack. You're moving up to the door. You're at the breach. Everybody floods into the building where the hit is taking place, the CQB. Everybody is gun up, but not everybody is necessarily shooting right away. So the dog needs to, first and foremost, be very comfortable with the full presentation of sidearms and long guns. So make sure that that's in there. Then we're going into having all of your strategies available, your click treat, your training apparatus, your place tables, other mitigation strategies. Even a dog that is good on food rewards and click treat, once they start getting the additional stimulation of seeing the gun, being exposed to the muzzle blast, the report, and seeing the firearm functioning, they may stop taking food rewards. They may lose interest in that because they're too keyed up. If they are already introduced to click treat, should you stop doing the click even if they're not taking the treat? No, you should not. If their behavior is still good and under control, if you're using a clicker as a marker or a verbal marker, keep marking those good reps. Every rep that they do where they are doing what they're supposed to do and not reacting negatively to the gunfire, keep hitting that clicker, keep using that verbal marker, and let them know that these are the reps that you're looking for. Even though you may take that Bill Jack treat or that piece of hot dog and you put it down there, and they may, and this happens to me regularly, they may put their nose in your hand and sniff it or lick at it, and they may even take it into their mouth, but then they just take their tongue and flick it back out on the ground because they're still keyed up and watching, but they're under control. That's fine. They don't have to eat the food. They can refuse it. They're in a heightened state of alert or awareness or drive, but keep hitting that clicker, keep giving that verbal marker as long as these reps are still good and under control. Toys. Are toys a good way to mitigate the stress of gunfire? Absolutely they are, 100%. In the first video that was on this, it was me moving with a dog with no toy available at all, and that works great for that dog. With everything we've done prior to that, that dog is very stable under the gunfire. With the other dog from the video footage in country in Afghanistan, you'll see that it has a Kong. If you go back and rewatch the first part of the video, you'll see that the dog has the Kong, and then when Ryan fires the first shot, you see that mouth chomping, the releasing of that anxiety into that Kong, and as he continues to shoot and move, the dog moves in a nice controllable heel, and you see that chomping. He's not looking at the firearm, he's not looking at the shooter, he's dealing with it, and that was old school. If you will notice, even with my golden rule of always shoot rifle suppressed, he didn't have a suppressor on that day, and that dog was still okay with that gunfire by using all of the techniques that we're outlining here to get to that point. But you can see the dog releasing that frustration and that anxiety into that toy. It works for that dog. What are the dogs that won't work for? If your dog requires a toy like a solid rubber Kong, and as all of you know by this point, that Kong can get slobbery and very tough to control when it's all slimed up with spit. And if they're a molar chomper and that dog gets stressed and he puts it in the molars, and then that toy shoots out from the side, two things can happen. They can either bite your leg without any intention or malice on their part because they're just chasing the flight of the toy and they're pursuing it, and they wind up biting you in the shin or the calf or the foot because they're chasing the toy in an effort to reacquire it, and it is in no way related to aggression on the part of the shooter, but your collateral damage. Or if they're a very sloppy chewer and the toy shoots out and they chase it, and now it hits the end of that hip lanyard, and we know that for a human the center of gravity is the hips, so this large breed dog maxing out that bungee or that hip lanyard going after that toy in pursuit can also pull you off target, can make you go off balance. If the toy shoots behind you and the dog runs backwards and you violently jerk to the left. So times where a toy isn't the best is if it's a toy that's given to escape, like a solid red Kong ball, or if your dog is a super energetic sloppy chewer. Dog toys that are more forgiving, if you're on a jute reward, which I'm not a huge fan of, but if you're using it, that's fine. The jute doesn't bounce, the jute doesn't squirt out. Tug toys, bumpers, if your dog is on a gun dog field trial white plastic inflatable bumper, bumpers don't really get away. There's a lot of real estate. The dog puts them sideways in their mouth like a horse bit, and even if they're a molar chewer, there's so much more real estate for the dog to hold on to with their molars that it doesn't pose a flight risk with it getting away from them. So as far as the toys go, know how energetic of a chewer your dog is, know what kind of a toy you have, and what are the risks of that toy getting away or the risks of the dog pursuing and reacquiring that toy. And you should be assessing both your toy and your dog's reaction to the toy before you're even the first person shooter. We've done this with our place, with our movement, with our detection, with our obedience, giving the dog, if they're not a big click treat fan, but they will take the toy and possess it during live gunfire, That is a great distractor. It's a great way to keep that little one-track mind focused on you and a toy and not on the act of shooting. And in the times that a dog might be a good food reward dog, if they quit taking the food but they'll still take the toy, good. I'm just going to move right in to keeping them on task and under control with the toy, and just roll with it. And then we will assess, is this toy, the choice of toy, and their mannerism, their method of chewing, is that compatible with them having that once I take over as first person shooter, to go ahead and validate that part of it. So food, that's a pretty good overview of how I start one and move into it. Let's talk about the 3 states of psychological reaction to gunfire from a dog: aggressive, neutral, and gun shy. So for again, we have to parse out the use of the dog in tactical settings for SOF and for most law enforcement agencies. Is having a gun shy dog a deal breaker for a law enforcement agency? No, it's not. It absolutely isn't. If you are getting advice from an outside trainer saying, oh, well, you're a law enforcement officer and you can't afford a dog that is gun shy, I disagree, and you should challenge them on an explanation for that, and you can use some of this information as a basis for that challenge. So we've already talked about where the dog factors in on the force continuum, what your role might be in an active shooter scenario or as perimeter security, or in a building search. Your dog's role for someone that we don't have in our control or in our line of sight right now would be the detecting of that person through a building search, area search, or track. If your dog is gun shy in this role, the person isn't shooting. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing the tracking or the building search right now. We would be taking cover and returning fire, maneuvering on this person. Certainly their position would be at least somewhat known to us, because they are shooting live ammunition in our direction or in the direction of a fellow officer. So the detecting of the person at this point in time with the dog is a moot point. We aren't even addressing that. So if he's gun shy and they're shooting, great, problem solved. What does a gun shy dog do? They run away from the sound of the gunfire. If it's already an active shooter and you have a gun shy dog, as I outlined before, they shouldn't even be out of the car in the first place. If they begin shooting on approach, or as this whole effort to bring them under control begins, and your dog wants to run away, okay, let him run away. He's probably going to go back to the car or be somewhere in the neighborhood. We can find this dog later. A gun shy dog is going to take off and flee the stress, and we will be able to get them later. It's not a big deal. So they'll say, well, in a tactical setting, your dog may cut and run on you under the sound of gunfire. As outlined previously, unless your department is comfortable with you using this dog in a lethal situation where he is on the force continuum, a less lethal option to begin with, your department needs to know you're asking me to throw this dog into a scenario where the investment of $10, $12, $15, $20,000 is going to be destroyed in the process. Are we comfortable with that up front? If the answer is no, then being a gun shy dog is not a problem, because if gunfire breaks out, we are not going to use a dog to try to solve a lethal situation with a less lethal option. So gun shy, he's going to cut and run on you. If you're on a track and your dog is a competent tracker and you're getting close and this person decides to open up on you and your dog is gun shy and wants to cut and run and take off, good. As a shooter, let him go. We will reunite later. Now this takes that divided attention task off the table of you needing to draw and return accurate fire without having to control a dog in the process. For a gun shy dog, you have actually benefited from the fact that he's left and you don't have to worry about managing him anymore. At that point, really, even if he's a neutral or definitely, hopefully not a gun aggressive dog, you've gone from the dog being a tactical asset to a tactical liability, because you still have to control them and then defend your own personal safety with lethal force and return accurate fire. 4 rules of gun safety being 100% positive identification of your target, knowing your target and what lies beyond it. If you're trying to manage a dog and stick to proper, safe use of lethal force by managing your dog's behavior, knowing your target and what is beyond it, boys, we're juggling chainsaws. This is getting tough. So if the dog is gun shy and leaves, all the better. Now I have that much less on my plate to deal with. So having a gun shy dog doesn't mean he can't be a patrol dog, be able to track, be able to bite and apprehend. If someone pulls a firearm, if you send your dog and you don't know that they're armed and the dog is biting them and they pull out a weapon and they fire the first round and it doesn't happen to be into the dog and that dog cuts and runs, all the better. Again, this is time for you to respond with lethal force. The dog has just removed itself as a potential problem for you returning accurate fire, a potential problem for a security officer shooting and injuring or killing the dog. The dog just removed himself from the field of fire. Great. This isn't a problem. They've actually created a safer backdrop and a safer area for you to engage with this bad guy if they have taken it to a lethal force engagement. This is not a problem. If your dog is gun neutral, that means the dog neither runs to nor away from gunfire and does not aggress gunfire if it's in their presence with a first-person shooter. This is the level that soft dogs have to operate at. I am going out to use a dog in a patrol setting where there may be both use of live gunfire by the bad guy and from me and from assaulters and security elements, and I need the dog reliably not running to or away from any of those. If my dog is gun shy and they're trying to run away, then I'm having problems staying on balance. This is not an operation that takes place in the community where my agency is at. We may have landed by helicopter, dismounted from vehicles. If this dog runs away under these conditions, we may not get it back. It may be too weirded out. We may have to exfil in a hasty fashion, and we may not be able to police up this dog and get it, and the dog may be lost. So that's why a gun shy dog in the setting of a law enforcement agency is radically different than for soft applications. You may have to leave and you don't get the dog back. With gun neutral, now I can shoot. I can have someone shooting at me. If the dog is gun aggressive to enemy gunfire, if you're a law enforcement officer and you have a gun aggressive dog, if they shoot first and the dog is aggressing towards the suspect, can you let them go? If this is the tipping point between me surviving the encounter or being killed or taking this guy out, if the dog is going to create such a liability for me right now that him trying to aggress the bad guy prevents me from giving accurate lethal gunfire in return, yes, cut him loose, let him go. If he takes a hit from the bad guy or from you or from a fellow officer, if that dog is going to cause me to fall down, come out from behind cover, or not be able to provide accurate lethal force before this guy can shoot me, then I don't have an asset from the dog. I have a liability. And if it comes down to me or this dog surviving the encounter, it's me. Dog's got to go. Unfortunately, I do know some guys that had gun aggressive dogs and they were at a bank robbery. In my view, now looking backwards in the rear view mirror, 15 years ago at this point, or 14 years ago, he shouldn't have even had the dog out in the first place. It's a bank robbery. They have a perimeter. Everyone's armed. The guy has already fired rounds. The dog shouldn't even have been out. The dog was out. The bad guy shoots. The handler shoots, and the dog aggresses the handler and starts biting on and creating a major tactical liability for the handler, and the handler's only option was to shoot his own dog because the aggression and the engagement from the dog was so strong on him that he was going to die or risk dying if he did not shoot the dog, because the dog was just on him. Go back to the start of this whole talk. Dog shouldn't even have been out to begin with. It's a bank robbery. The guy's got a gun. We know he's got a gun. He's already fired rounds. We have a perimeter. This is not the time for the dog to even be out. He's not a deterrent. It's a less lethal option. We aren't going to try to solve this with tasers, pepper spray, chemical restraints, impact weapons. Why are we going to try to solve it with the dog? It's not the venue. And this may be the controversial point. Leave him in the car. If the guy breaks containment and we need a track or a building search, get the dog out. We're not shooting right now. We're trying to reacquire this suspect so that we can bring him in, because we're duty bound to do so, because the likelihood that he will follow on and use this weapon to hurt other people in the process of his escape or the commission of a follow-on crime is very high. We are now duty bound and obligated to stop this guy, and we are going to bring the dog out in order to try to make that happen. But until he has broken containment, we don't even need the dog out. Shouldn't have even been on the perimeter. So with that being said, this again lowers the focus that we should put on all of this tactical obedience and incorporating a dog and doing 2-gun transition drills when the dog is right next to you. If I'm on the perimeter and the guy is armed and I'm holding perimeter and I'm employing a long gun, dog stays in the car. He doesn't even need to be out there. If he breaks containment, we have time to flex, move the security officers, move to where the guy broke through containment, get the dog out, get a long line on him, and start to go ahead and do a track or an area search. Then once we'll do gold member for a second. Once the shootings begin again, dog's back out of it. He's not the problem solver anymore. He doesn't factor in to resolving this situation for domestic law enforcement. So with that being said, if you have a gun aggressive dog, does that mean as a law enforcement officer that you have to wash this dog out of the program? Not necessarily. Maybe your agency, as previously stated, doesn't have the budget in order to try to get another dog. Is he a good bite dog? Do you have good control over it? Can you send this dog for a bite and call him off before he does it? Can you put him on a bite and then get him to out and return to you reliably? If the answer to all of those is yes, then where he falls at on the force continuum, you've got a good, reliable patrol dog, because again, he is a less lethal option, normally below impact weapons. So if I can use him to track a bad guy, do it in a building search, find him, locate him, if it doesn't look like he has a gun or a knife, but he's still uncooperative, and I'm trying to use this dog before an impact weapon to effect an arrest, your gun aggressive dog still can function reliably in all of those roles where he is most perfectly suited to be in those roles. So you don't have to wash this dog out at the advice of a trainer saying, well, your dog is gun aggressive, he has no place in a law enforcement capacity. Yes, he does. The dog is a great use of force because unlike the taser, unlike the OC, unlike the less lethal ammunition, unlike lethal ammunition, the dog is the one you can send, see the dynamics change, and say, Fluffy, off, Fooey, Foos, Plots, here. You can call that dog off, get them to quit, break off pursuit, and return to you because something in the situation has changed. And that is why Canine has the role that it does, has its acceptance that it does in domestic law enforcement, because it is a good intimidation factor, it is a good use of force, and it is a use of force unlike any other one that we have, where you can stop it after you've already deployed it. Can you stop or soften a blow with an impact weapon mid-swing? Sure, you can pull your punch, you can let out of it, maybe you can even stop and get it back before impact. So it's quasi something you can stop, but you have to be on really close proximity to a person to use an impact weapon. The dog is something we can send 15, 20, 30, 50 yards away and affect this arrest if the guy has committed a crime, if he's a runaway from a pursuit, if he's on a bailout, if it's a domestic, and this guy is running empty hands and he sees you and he's outrunning officers and we've got a clear backdrop and this guy has committed an assault in a domestic setting, hey, stop MFer. MFer will not stop. I'm going to send my dog, send dog to bite same. This is a good use of force for the dog. They're outrunning the officer. An assault has occurred. They are trying to evade capture. No one else was around. I send the dog to bite and hold and stop the flight of this suspect so that I can get up and effect the arrest. This is all good, solid protocol across the board for using that dog. If I send the dog and something changes, a little kid runs out, the dog gets distracted by a jogger, phooey, break off the pursuit, the contact, come back to me. Once, if we had full engagement and the guy's on the ground and I catch up and one or two cuffing officers catch up and the guy's on the ground and we're wearing our body cameras like we've discussed in previous videos, oh, I give up. He's physically trying to give up. I got my hand in the air, my free hand, maybe the dog's biting my arm if he's on my hammy, and I've got both hands in the air. Please make it stop. Okay, Fluffy, Los, out. Poost, let the guy go, come back to me. Hey, mister, listen up, bro. If you don't do everything exactly the way I tell you to, or you become combative or uncooperative in this process, the dog's coming back over there. You understand me? All solid stuff. Take him off, be able to out him, recall him to you. Now you've got someone other than yourself who's responsible for the cuffing. If you were Han Solo and you were the only one there and the dog takes him down and you can out him and put the dog in a controlled down stay while you apply the restraints, great. All of this is solid stuff. Is this dog who's a solid biter and obedient and has good control, is the fact that he's either gun shy or gun aggressive a problem? Should this dog have been precluded from even serving at your agency because of gun shy or gun aggressiveness in the scenario that we just outlined? No, absolutely not. He was absolutely perfect in the role that we just outlined, which is the majority of the police activity with a patrol dog. So saying all that to say this, I didn't bring my watch or a cell phone out today so I could keep track of the time. I know I've got to be close to an hour at this point, but I like to be thorough. I don't want this to be hit and run videos where I'm trying to hide any knowledge or give only a surface level explanation for people to sit back and sharpshoot and say, well, this a-hole doesn't know what he's talking about. I want to be thorough, but I respect your time, and if you're watching the video, I don't want it to be, a commitment over an hour to try to get through it. If this was interesting, if you have follow-on questions, if you want more information, put it in the comments of the video. I do read them. I do respond. Go find my P2T Instagram account where there's a lot of training information over there and some fun videos. There's information on the equipment, but obviously on Instagram you can send me direct messages to my account if you have an account over there, and you can say, hey, if you have a shorty, if it's a short question, I'll do an Instagram post of the video addressing your question specifically. If it's deep, if you want a part 2 on the truth behind gunfire and patrol canines, I can go into a part 2 that addresses more specific information. But I want to be thorough but still be respectful of the length of these videos. But there are ways you can get a hold of me and ask for more information, and I am more than happy to try to help. I did not have a lot of mentorship when I was at my agency. Starting off, there wasn't a lot of SME level, subject matter expert level guys in my area who could help me out. Again, I know about this because I've made all the mistakes, but I've also had a ton of success over the years. Um, and so I do have a very thorough understanding of all of this. Um, and I'm happy to try to share it for free because, hey, if it benefits somebody and I can get you interested in my dog equipment and I can sell quality leashes and collars, I'm happy to do so. So thank you for watching. Put something in the comments if you want to know more, if you have questions, if you have criticism. I take it all. Hit me up on the IG, and I can go into depth more in specific areas. Thank you for watching. Appreciate you tuning in for another Dog Talk.